Hello everyone, this is Peter from Franke de la Fuente. I'm happy to introduce today our fourth episode of our new podcast series here in Palma, Behind the Sales. What do? So we meet professional brokers here in the area, usually brokers that we have met in the past and we had good conversations with. And then we thought, put on the cameras and let the audience listen to those conversations about the market, maybe a little about the future, but also about those individuals. And this time, I'm happy to have Alby with me from the agency.
Good morning, Peter. Thank you.
Nice to have you here.
Yeah.
We
Nice
met before.
Yes, we have.
Yes.
Of course, many times.
Many
stories already.
Not in front of so many cameras, though.
No.
Let's see how it goes.
This is a first.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself and then also the agency, the company that you run here.
Yeah. So I moved here. I'm originally from the UK. My family moved here when I was about 3 years old. The usual story, fed up of the weather in the UK, needed a change. We had family already living here, so my cousins are half Spanish. We used to come on holiday here all the time, and obviously, the move just made a lot of sense. So, picked up everything, sold the house, moved here, didn't tell us. Just we came over one Christmas and then we found out we weren't going back. Threw us into a Spanish school and then, been here ever since, really. Got into real estate out of college. I took an internship at a company that at the time was affiliated with Knight Frank in the UK. So I was, the pillow fluffer, photographer chaser, mailing guy for like 6 months, and got offered a job to stay on as an agent after that. So I stayed with them for long. It was like 5 years, something like that. Left them to start a small franchise with a local business there was like a family connection there. Stayed with them for like 5 or 6 years, and then out of the blue, I guess I just kind of saw the influx of American tourists coming to the island, and it was about 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago now. And I just saw again, Americans, and I was hearing the accent everywhere, and I'd been in the luxury real estate space for at that time like 10 years, and I just thought there's a gap in this market for a US brand. So I reached out to 3 or 4 American companies. Just one Thursday evening, last thing I did before I left the office, sent out a bunch of like approach emails, originally with the view of like collaborating, like, hey, I have this brand here. Let's, I'd love to be your contact person if you guys have clients coming to Mallorca. And then, sent the last email out to Mauricio Umansky, who's the founder of the agency. And, typical, got my coat. And as I was putting the alarm on for the office, I had an email come back from Mauricio himself. He was like, hey, love the email. Like, are you free for a chat? So naturally, I threw my coat off, said yes, got a call from Mauricio, and straight away he was like, hi, what's up? This kind of big energy guy that he is. And we ended up chatting for like 20, 30 minutes, just about the market and the type of sales we were doing. And he said, okay, all sounds great. I want to put you in touch with someone, like, let's continue this conversation. So I got in contact with who I then found out later to be their head of franchise sales. I had no idea they had a franchise model. At the time, there was only one office in Europe, which was Amsterdam. So I didn't really even have that in my mindset. I just wanted to be, like I said, the contact person. And these conversations carried on for a couple of months. And then eventually they opened up and said, hey, look, we don't really co-brand. We don't partner with other companies. But we really like you. We like your energy. Would you be interested in taking the franchise? And at the time in my personal life, I'd gone through a bit of a change. So I was no longer in a relationship with who was the daughter of the owner of my last company.
I see.
So I guess at that point, things were already changing for me. And I thought, okay, this is an opportunity to make a jump into something really big, potentially. So I did. I just, said yes, signed a contract, and we went through the onboarding process and launched the company. Since then, we are now 5 different franchises in Europe. It's a company that's growing a lot.
That's interesting, yeah. So just to have some facts clear here, then when did you actually press the button? When was it launched here in Palma, the franchise?
So we pushed the button September 22. And then we launched the office end of February 23.
Right.
Yeah.
And right now you have 2 offices, am I right? Two locations?
Yes. So we launched our first office was Portals, which was where we were previously. So we essentially rebranded that office, brought on new team members, and most recently opened the second office in Palma by Gallery Red. Yeah.
Gallery Red. I've seen them everywhere.
They've got a good business.
Yeah.
I mean, they really that it's funny, that area of Palma. Obviously, you're on the Bourne, right, which is all the big fashion and whatever, and all the big shops. But just behind you have this little plaza, which
a bit of a pocket there. Yeah,
which was abandoned until he, Drew, kind of had this vision and started opening galleries there, and now all of a sudden it's like, one of the nicer parts, in one of the nicest parts of Palma. So we're really happy to be there.
Yeah, it's a good location. Well, that's quite a story. So you almost not born into the business, but you started earlier then, it sounds like.
Yeah.
How old were you when you started in the real estate business?
So I must have been 8. I didn't have a driver's license, put it that way.
Okay.
So when I first took the internship, I was getting dropped to the office by my mum, and then picked up by my girlfriend, which was quite fun. But it was good because, in a way, it made me arrive at the office first, because we had to get into Palma before a certain time, and my girlfriend would pick me up after the gym, so I was the last to leave. So when the owner of the company would look at the records of the alarm, he saw that I was first in, last out, and I think that was probably one of the reasons that made him think, okay, let's give this guy a shot. Yeah.
Well, so in total now, how many years would you say that you have been active in the business?
Active, I'm now 31, so 13 years, something like that. Yeah, coming into the. Yeah.
So you enjoy it, I guess. You like?
I love it. Yeah.
What do you like most about it?
Honestly, there are, I think, few industries where you can spend as much time with, big CEOs of companies, very interesting people, and have that amount of kind of quality time with these people. We have clients that are looking anywhere from, say, 500,000 up to, I've done viewings on properties up to 75 million euros, right? And a lot of the time you have these people in the car. So to kind of pick someone's brain at that level, I find really interesting. Just to know how they got to where they are, right? I think that's...
And the achievement of finding just the right place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because half the time, they've a lot of these people have houses, multiple houses, right? So they might come into the island or meet a broker with a certain idea of what they want, and then as you kind of start to understand them, their family, their needs, it might end up being something totally different, and that's quite a fun thing to kind of unravel as well, right? Because oftentimes people don't really know what they want. They come with an expectation of I'm moving to Mallorca, right? So I have to see the sea, and I need to be as close to the front line as possible, if not front line. But then they see they don't get much land. A lot of the front line here, it's not like buying Turks and Caicos, right? Where you have this, big white sandy beach in front of you. Half the time it's on a cliff. And half the time then, as soon as the sun sets, you're looking out into the abyss. So they might want a view, but front line isn't really what works,
Yeah. Okay, so you're a local boy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you spent your childhood here since you were 3 years old, and then early age into the business. But still, it's 13 years. It's quite a long time, even though you're only 31.
Yeah.
Suddenly I feel very old. But so what would you say is the major changes? What have you seen in terms of change throughout your 13 years, entering young and now, from until now?
I mean, I think in general, just from just on the business side of things, like from when I first got into the industry, a lot of people were just buying things to come and spend a couple of weeks in the summer, like holiday homes. So that was the focus. And then as time has evolved, we're seeing the trend of more and more people making a more permanent move, which I think is really interesting, because that completely changes the buyer's requirements, right? All of a sudden, what may have just been a small house with minimum maintenance, all of a sudden now you've seen in areas like the middle of the island interest and demand has just exploded because people are now spending more time here, which means they want more space. They want more kind of amenities in the house that they may have not have really considered before. If you're coming for a couple of months in the summer, you may not want a sauna, right? But now
maybe the Swedes and the Finnish.
Yeah, of course, the Swedes and the Finns naturally, but they don't really spend that much time here in the summer.
No.
Right? Especially that you've got good weather in Sweden, right?
Yeah,
so that's probably
there.
the time where you'd spend less time here. But as people spend, moving here, even comparing it to when I went to school, when I first moved here and we went, my parents put us in a Spanish school to learn the language and get into the kind of cultural side of things. I was the only English kid in my entire year. So not just my class, but my year. And now, we've got agents that work for us that have kids, and they're very international schools, even the Spanish ones. If you look at Queen's College or these private schools, you expect most of the kind of kids there would be international. But in Spanish schools now, there's tons of international students because people are making the move full time.
And that's been a rapid change in your...
I certainly an uptick from COVID. Like after COVID, I think that probably gave people time at home to really reevaluate. Then the boom in kind of more online businesses, the way that people use Zoom meetings and Teams, people don't need to be physically in the office as much now. I think that probably opened it up.
Absolutely. So it's interesting to have you in the chair here now and talk about the American market, because you saw this coming, you say. So when was this then? It must have been earlier than 2022 then. When did you start? Can you remember when we started to notice the American interest in Palma?
Palma specifically, it was around about then, because obviously I didn't see it before because we were locked down for a year and a half here, right?
I didn't notice anything.
It was, exactly. Just four walls and going slightly insane. But as that kind of opened up, you started seeing more talk about it, and then I think it's probably around about when the United flight got announced that they were bringing this direct flight from Palma to New York. That started picking up, and it was more hearing the accents in the Southwest that kind of triggered it, because I think Michael Douglas has the house in Valdemosa Dea. A few Americans had already bought around the West Coast, and there you would hear it more. Maybe sometimes from off a cruise ship you might see it, but actually seeing people in the local spots in the Southwest kind of really was what triggered it.
And how have you then seen it? Because of course you open up the franchise here with the agency, a very American company.
Yep.
Is it founded in California, LA area?
Yes. So the first office was founded by Mauricio and Billy. I think we're talking 13 years ago now. They had the first office. One was Beverly Hills. And then I guess the expansion since then has been pretty nuts. I just got back from a conference that we had in Fort Lauderdale in the middle of January, and we were, I think, 700 plus people at the conference from 150 different countries. 150 offices, 15 countries. Sorry. So that expansion has been pretty big.
And that is a trend I have seen as well. Not, the trend I mean by the brands becoming international. So the world is getting smaller.
Yes.
From a business perspective, so to speak. We are also we want to be an international law firm now. We have open office in Palma. We have it, of course, on Costa del Sol. We have it in the Canary Islands. But we are looking outside the borders of Spain as well. Because we work, we're highly invested in the real estate market. And where are international clients buying properties? Spain is very popular. South Coast and Palma. Dubai is, of course, quite a huge market as well. And there are other markets popping up and building in strength as well around the world. So it makes sense, of course, that you see companies expanding outside their own borders. And so with the agency, what would you say is... What's the difference with the American perspective when it comes to doing business, real estate business?
Yeah, I think, from what we see with American clients and just American agents in general, they're used to, in America, everything's very controlled, right? You have the MLS, you have, agents are licensed. So in that regard, they do they do it probably at the best it can be done. The marketing, the type of marketing and the amount of marketing that these American real estate companies and the agency in particular have become famous for, it's really kind of forward thinking. They invest heavily into content, and that's what we tried to, one of the many things we tried to bring from the brand was this marketing approach. And that was one of the reasons why, when these conversations were happening about a potential, me bringing an American company in, I went for the agency, because the last thing I wanted to do when I was leaving a franchise to set something new up was to open another real estate company. There are tons here, right? And again, I think as after COVID, a lot of people just started more like smaller, independent companies. So we didn't just want to be another brand on the table. We wanted to really provide value to our sellers, and the way we wanted to do that, and our kind of vision for that, was making marketing the center point of what we were doing. We wanted to take on, or we do actually take on, less listings than some of our competitors or colleagues, however you may call it, because just listing everything and slapping it on Idealista, or just even on your own website, and waiting for a client to find it, I don't see that as a very forward-thinking mentality, right? So we are taking on fewer listings. We invest in marketing in each listing that we bring on, whether that be through social media content, great photography, but we have like I don't want to share too much secret sauce, right? But
we can edit it out.
Yeah, just a long beep. we really target direct lead traffic. So when we have a property, let's say, we're in the studio now in Son Españolet, right? So let's say we bring on a listing here, a townhouse here. We know that the majority of the buyers around this area might be more Scandinavian, maybe aged between kind of 40 and maybe 60. They want to be close to Santa Catalina, etc. We will take the content that we put from this listing, and we will directly target that type of demographic in Sweden or Norway or however it may be. So, and you can't do that when you have 1,000 listings, right? Unless you have millions of euros to burn through on ads. So it's more of a direct approach, which so far has been working.
Is that an American approach, you would say? Is that what they? Well, maybe I'm generalizing a little bit too much here, but the agency approach. So is it a similar way of working as they do in America?
Well, in America, they work more on an exclusivity basis, right? Pretty much exclusively it's that. So an agent will get a listing, and they will be the sole agent behind that listing. And that's the model, again, that we are transitioning towards here, I think, because there are so many companies, and what an owner can easily do is devalue their property by listing it with tons of other agencies, right? And I understand the thought process, and that's strictly because you want to approach every demographic. You don't want to miss out. You don't want to miss out on the German market, so I'll list with the German agency. I want to reach the Swedish market, so I'll go with the Swedish agent. Before you know it, there's 10 agents on a house, and it's shown on the web in the internet 10 times in a row, oftentimes with different square meters, which is
you lose control.
Yeah, you lose control of everything, and the pictures might be better here than there. So what we're trying to do, and again, when we're taking all this super high quality marketing content, is we'll go to the owner and say, listen, let us handle the marketing. We'll take all the pictures, we'll take all the video, and we will quite happily open it up to all the other agents to bring their clients. Now, since the beginning of last year, I got elected as the vice president of Abini, which is the International Real Estate Association here in the Balearics. And what that does is gives us access to the top, I think we're now 25 different companies, international companies, on the islands. So when I get a listing and I have an exclusive mandate on it, we're controlling the media narrative, the marketing narrative. I can still share it out to all these other companies that you want access to. We have a great working relationship. You're still approaching those different buyers. And ultimately we achieve better results.
It's more similar to the model that the similar model to Marbella. I think you already know that there is an established model called collaboration in the Marbella area. So most agents, I don't know exact numbers, but I'm pretty sure 95% of all products, resale products, are shared. You know, they put them on a platform, and you can all access that platform, and in that way you can have a buyer that you assist the buyer, and then you can provide all options to that client.
Exactly.
And my experience of that system, I think there are of course many benefits, as you say, that you can reach out, your vendor, the seller knows that I'm not only limited to the agency clients, but also many other clients.
Yeah.
But and there's also, of course, one challenge is if there are too many involved in that platform, too many agents, you might not always be sure that the agents that you're working with maybe have the same sense of ethics or professionalism
Correct.
or way of working, etc., that you expect from a professional collaboration. So you have to be, I think that agency in Marbella area, they use this system, but they're also a little bit cautious and careful when they have the requests coming in of viewings.
Yeah, and you have to be, and we do a lot of collaborations here, and I'm part of a couple of it's very kind of prehistoric, but WhatsApp groups, right, where people are just sending either buyers' search criterias or listings that they have, and the problem with that is, one, you can't search for it when you need it. So if an agent A has a client looking for, I don't know, a finca in Santa Maria, right, and I don't have one right now with those requirements, I might get it in 2 months, but I can't search for it. Or I was like, oh, what was that guy who had that client? And I have to scroll through, loads of crap to try and find it. So there is a platform that we're pushing, or I'm pushing, better said, here, which is called the NLS. They are active in Marbella right now. And a few things that they're doing, which I really like.
Dyson, right?
That is Chris Dyson. Yeah. Shout out to Chris. So what they're doing is giving agents a platform where they can upload their listings. They have to prove that they have a signed mandate for that listing, because also listing poaching is incredible. The amount of times that I've, on one of these WhatsApp groups, put out a kind of search criteria for a client, and someone has had either, I won't say the audacity, but someone has sent me one of my own videos that they've cropped our logo out and be like, what about this one?
Yeah.
And it's literally me in the video. And I'm like, mate, please check it out. Like, that's my video. Yeah. I have that listing. Yeah. It stops that happening, but it also gives agents a place to, one, be able to search for one. So again, if I have a buyer criteria, I can upload that buyer criteria onto my wants side of the page, and they can then see if they have a listing for it and send it to me directly with pretty clear collaboration terms. So there's not all this kind of murky water collaboration style, which I think you see when, unfortunately, markets are a bit unregulated.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit about that then, because we have also, of course, experience of the American market and Americans and the American system. I know very well that the market is very regulated, as you say, in the US, state level. You also have the sometimes municipality level, etc. And my understanding when working with American clients is that they rely heavily on their advisors. It's a country where they are quite used to work with advisors in general. Yeah. My broker, my lawyer, my tax advisor, etc. Yeah. Right? So the expectations from the Americans when they fly over, in my experience, is that, of course, they do some research and they can understand. They know maybe sometimes it's going to be different, but they're still in the backbone, so to speak, of their experience is that they expect things to be in order, to have not multiple duplicate listings. Yeah. Prices are correct. There's liability for the advisors on the market, etc. Do you have the same experience from working with Americans flying over, and what do they face? What kind of challenges do they face when they meet the Spanish real estate market?
Yeah, to be honest, I think one of the bigger surprises for them is the clarity of data. So, with something like the MLS in place, which has its big pluses and minuses, and we can really go into that if you want, but when they come over here and they're looking in a certain area, they want to know what the price per square foot is on this street. Doesn't really exist. Yeah. You can kind of generalize, but you might have a house in Old Bendinat that's 18, 20 million. Next door is like 7 because it's a bit older or whatever. So you can't really generalize that much. And also even what things sold for. So fortunately, I think it gives good agents, the kind of power of market knowledge. Like your knowledge is key. Yeah. So if someone's kind of new to the industry or just isn't really on the ball, they may not have a clue. What sold to whom, and even if it wasn't you, just to kind of have that knowledge, know what Engel and Volker's sold that for, or it's like everything agents they all talk, right? So you always get the gossip, who sold to whom, and so on. So having that knowledge, I think, is super important when you're dealing with American clients because they're used to it. For the agents in the US, it's probably easier because it's all data they can track. Here, it's all word of mouth and hearsay. So that I think they struggle with, and I think that's probably the biggest kind of thing to overcome. It's just the clarity in the market, and like you said with agents, here we're not licensed, so an agent can say that a house, I don't know, let's kind of make an example of a finca, right, that may have been overdeveloped, or this part of the house is illegal, that well isn't registered. These type of things are just completely unfathomable in the US, sorry. Yeah. So that you really need to get your head around that. I think is just that, Spain up until however many years ago was the Wild West, and now all of a sudden it's the complete opposite, and you can't cough without a license.
Yeah. No, I think we as a market, the markets needs to catch up, and I think this is a conversation I had with many people here and Marbella as well. We have real estate associations, very highly invested in making change. We ourselves have an academy, Franke de la Fuente Academy, where we actually educate agents to learn a little bit about, mostly maybe new agents, to learn about the basic legal process of buying a property, etc. But where you started to talk about how the market has changed throughout these, for you, 13 years. Traditionally, not only here, but I think in most of Spain, international buyers, they were buying a second home, a place for vacation, to spend a few weeks, in the sun every year, etc. Maybe for retirees as well. That has shifted dramatically, and especially, as you say, after COVID. Now they are relocating, or they are at least planning to relocate, maybe in the future. And that's not going to change. I mean, that's just going to increase, So we're going to see that shift if there aren't heavy obstacles by maybe the Spanish government or others to tackle that. But anyway, that's pretty clear. And then, of course, prices go up as well, heavily, you're right, a lot. We have new clientele, international clientele flying in to buy properties. And not only the Americans, I mean, this is from everywhere, of course. They expect, I'm going to spend a lot of money here. And it's not only the big budgets, it's anyone really to spend a big chunk of their savings to buy real estate. They expect the market to be professional. They expect things to be in order. They hope to have things clear, clarity, etc. So, and I see a trend. The trend is also that many professional players on the market wants to have this change. We want to be able to tell our clients, listen, this is how it works here. You're going to be in good hands. Don't worry about these things, right? But we're not there yet.
Nope.
We need still to make a lot of changes. And actually, one of my examples from American clients is that they came, in this case, to Marbella to buy, spend some time there. And then they realized, because they were very interested in property, and then they had this experience that they saw the same property on different platforms, different prices, different square meters. You know what they said? They just said, you know what? Forget about this.
It's not for me,
They flew back. They decided not to go ahead because they didn't trust. They didn't have the trust in the market.
But especially if it's a lower price, right? I mean, that's the worst thing that can happen. And I saw this just the other day, and we were speaking about Idealista and these type of platforms, but we have a house which has just been finished. It's in the market in Portals. They just put the prices somewhere in the 11s, 11.2 or something like that. I should probably know that, but I was scraping through some data online, and there were a few aggregators, right, that put all of the market data from all the websites in one place. And I saw it listed as a project with basically the plot price for someone to then buy it and develop it themselves. And if I was a buyer, and I won't disclose what the price was because then it would become obvious which house it is. But if I was a buyer and I went online and I saw the house for 11 million, I was like, oh, you know what, I really like that. And then I saw the price of X for the plot and the project. I'd be thinking, hang on, how much profit is in this flip? You know what I mean? Like, is the value really there? And I guess that's also, in terms of like clarity and so on, there are so many developers here that are, kind of churning out projects left and right. And I guess from their side, it's probably great that there's no clarity, right? Because then all of a sudden the margins get revealed.
No, exactly. So of course, there's going to be opportunities then to make business in maybe not an ethical way.
Yeah,
that's just how it is. It's a fact, and that is something that sadly, we have to deal with. And of course, we have clients as well. I'm not going to mention the exact property, but it's a very expensive property in the Marbella area where our clients bought it. Well, they didn't buy it with us. And then they came to us for tax to talk about certain tax questions. And we realized that when they bought the house, which is more than 10 million euros, I could say that, they weren't informed about the solidarity tax. They didn't know. Nobody told them that they're going to be liable for paying solidarity tax, wealth tax, in Spain. Of course, so that is a quite serious matter for them to deal with right now.
And a tough one to unravel.
So we see if we can help them, but that's one of the reasons. We want people to be buyers, international clients that come here to feel confident and secure when they enter this market. Absolutely. And one thing that you mentioned about the clarity of the documents that are in place when you list the properties here in Palma. For me, it's something that I'm battling every week. I tell all the sellers that I deal with, let us do a due diligence of your property. Give us all the documents. Don't hide anything, or many times they don't know actually about the legal situation of the property. And then when they have a buyer and they start the due diligence, things unravel, and suddenly the buyer understands that there's some kind of legal issue. So what is your thought on that when it comes to taking on listings?
I mean, we do try. Again, there's no standard, right, as to like on a kind of market basis of what needs to be provided to an agency to list. So oftentimes a seller would be like, oh, I don't have that, but here's the signed mandate and here's a floor plan that my uncle drew up, right, on an A4.
Maybe not as simple.
Or they might not want you to see the price they bought it for, right? So oftentimes they may not even share that until you get a good relationship. But we are having it right now. We have a case where we listed a house, and seller, great guy, reputable kind of person here on the island, and client viewed the house, loved the house, got an offer agreed, everyone's happy, right? We were going to the notary towards the end of last year. Seller didn't use a lawyer. He's like, I don't need to, I'll have someone in the office just kind of look over it. And the day before the signing, day before the notary, we saw some tax change or something that wasn't done, accidentally wasn't done right. So we had to put the whole thing on ice, sign an extension, and we've been unraveling it since. So we're now going to the notary, I think, in a couple of weeks. But the buyer then had this kind of, cold feet. I'm not sure. It brings all these other doubts in, right, into what's already a stressful enough situation of people investing a large chunk of money into, second, third home. It went from being everyone's super excited, like, I can't wait to come, to then nervous, cold feet, second guessing, is this a right idea? So yeah, I mean, even after 13 years, you still get these like big learning curves, right? So yeah, I know you've insisted on it with us when you've spoken to our agents in the office, but more and more we're insisting on having it done.
I mean, that's not easy, and I think it's also good now we're talking about this. Maybe we're. It sounds like we're complaining here when we're not, and things have improved.
Doomsday.
I mean, we're highlighting. It's good that we're highlighting this because, of course, there's been already changes to the positive. We're talking about this, in front of a camera, and I think there are many, people on the market that do things much, much better, much more professional already now than just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I think that the influx of more international clients buying to relocate, buying, a new home rather than a vacation home, has brought this attention. Maybe brought the attention to this matter, so we can improve things. And they are already better, I think, than it was in the past. But there is still room for many improvements.
I think with elevated expectations, you're gonna get more structure. Right, because that's just how you have to operate. And I think the government are trying to bring in more kind of control to some degree. Like, I believe they're now, if we can have an inspection in your office and someone can just walk in with a clipboard and say, hey, you have a listing in the window there. You're not displaying the energy certificate on that listing. You can get a fine. So and they might say, okay, because of all public data and data protection, yada yada, there's kind of a conflict in what you should be able to provide a buyer, and what you can only disclose at a certain time. But a buyer should be able to walk in your office, according to the law, I believe, and request to check the cedula, to check the energy certificate.
Well, actually, the housing law tells you that all intermediaries on the market need to provide full and clear information about the property. It's a little bit vague from me being a lawyer to what is it, what and when
do
you
we need to?
Yes.
Because of data protection, right?
Yes.
So how much can you show?
All right then.
Yeah.
Okay, Alby, let's finish off a little bit here. Now, American clients, have we spoken about that? And let's focus on those now for the future. We usually end up talking a little bit about the future. So what are your ideas about the American buyers? Are they here to stay? What do you see in the future from the Americans?
I definitely think they're here to stay. I think, I didn't have exact figures with me, but percentage-wise, we see that year on year, they're kind of coming more and more and buying more real estate here. We now have a direct flight coming in June from Montreal, right? So that opens up Canada, not just USA, but we're going to have other flights that are coming in. I think LA and Miami have been confirmed but not released, and all these different flights. But it's just becoming, especially I think it's the social media, right? It's just becoming more known. Mallorca is just opening up to this new market. It's now the trendy place to go. So I definitely think they're here to stay. I think we're in a stage right now where a lot of American clients, especially the ones that we get, they're discovering the island, right? So they come and I love Mallorca, but they have no idea the difference from Esporles to wherever, Dea, right? Wherever it may be. So we have a big exploration phase. We have to kind of take them by the hand a little bit and guide them through that journey, and again, figure out what it is lifestyle-wise they're after. If they want to be close to the beach and play a load of tennis, whatever, then maybe Soyer isn't for them. So you kind of have to listen and go. It's a longer process for sure compared to a German or a Swedish buyer who has been traveling to Mallorca for ages, and they have their spot, they have their little niche and their friend group already established. We want to be 15 minutes from Palma. That's it. An American client will come here and the distance, the island becomes tiny very quickly. A 30-minute drive when you live in the US is nothing. You know what I mean? You'll drive that for a Starbucks. So all of a sudden the island opens up, different areas for different clients. That's what I'm excited to kind of see, is how many do start coming over. We have an agent in our office now who's actually relocated from our Beverly Hills office to our Mallorca offices. she's been at the agency since like, year one, something like that. And she's made that move, brought her family here. We're seeing every year on year, we see more agents that are actually just on holiday, and they're coming to Spain, they're coming to Mallorca. So I guess it's just like a compounding effect, right? More and more people come, the more it's more mainstream. They see that the flights stay. It's not something that's just a tomato season and is going to, close. Then you get more you get more confidence, I guess, into investing. Hotels, Four Seasons, Mandarin Oriental, all these big brands coming to the island. I think it's just going to make Mallorca a easier, more mainstream place for Americans to buy.
Right. Okay. Let's make a deal to meet again in, let's say, 5 years.
Yep. Here.
We'll see if you're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bit grayer hair, but I think that's a deal.
No.
Yeah.
All right, Alby. Thank you so much for coming over. Pleasure
Absolute
to have
pleasure.
you.